this is a session where we are going to appreciate what needs to be in place, ideally, before in your country with all your partners, you start embarking in the ERP approach a little bit more meaningfully. So maybe you're going to start discussing ERP during your regular cluster meetings, your regular technical working groups and nutrition sector meetings. But maybe you're going to come to realize that maybe to instigate a first ERP planning event might be organized jointly. So you might want to organize a workshop using that package we've developed, and you will be using the package and all the tools, but you need to prepare ahead for that to happen, and for that workshop, that event to be really a constructive and productive event. By the end of it, you really want to have an ERP plan for your country being developed. Okay, so it's to appreciate all the necessary data, information, tools you need in place ahead of organizing such an event. So you are here in the planning process at the very beginning of it. We're in the very first steps. Okay, and in the step-by-step guide, you'll see that we've pulled all these preliminary work in the form of a sort of a checklist in Annex 5 of the guide. Okay, so it's about doing your desk review to know the government mechanisms in place. You don't start from scratch, right? So you have to be aware and have reviewed and be able to explain to all your partners, okay, the government has this kind of plan in place. You might need to work a little bit ahead of before organizing a workshop. Identify the key stakeholders you want to have involved in your ERP planning workshop. You have also in the guide some links to other GNC tools. For instance, the advocacy toolkit has a fun way to exercise to identify key strategic stakeholders, actors who could be important for the decision making, you know, to make sure that your ERP plan you develop as a sector or cluster will be approved and appreciated by the authorities. Maybe you need to involve someone from government who will buy into this approach, right? Then you need to have done your overview of the nutrition situation. You need to know what is the nutrition situation prior a risk, a crisis hit. You need to have a methodology a bit defined with your partners ahead, having understood who is going to be leading what step or playing an active role. And also something we recommend to do is to reflect on past emergencies, right? We can learn a lot from a previous crisis. We can remember what happened that, you know, maybe challenged us in implementing an emergency response and predict anticipate and plan to be able to do better next time a crisis hit. Okay, to reflect on past crisis, that can be part of a first session of an ERP workshop when you do it in country with your partners, and then maybe also use this self-evaluation tool we discussed earlier today to again initiate discussions and start understanding how much you need to improve and strengthen your emergency preparedness. Okay, so maybe, yeah, what I wanted to say is that for this workshop, this week, we will not have an ERP plan developed by the end of the week. I mean, we're going to try to work on this as Untitled country. We're going to pretend we're a nutrition cluster, right? We're all partners of the nutrition cluster of Untitled. And we might not have the time to go each and every step in details. But again, here we want to provide the tools and the knowledge that will enable you in your countries, with your partners, to do a more comprehensive ERP exercise. So again, step 3, for instance, this week, that is about mapping existing response capacities. We will not do it this week, okay? You will do it. It's more valuable for you to do that in your countries, and you're already doing it. And remember, throughout of the week, or when we do ERP planning, we are going to focus around the core function of a cluster, the core objective of cluster coordination, meaning that when we do mapping of capacities, we meant that we focus on coordination capacities, information management capacities, assessment capacities, and everything we need for response delivery. That's your partners, so your 4W, your supplies and equipment, key supplies and equipment, your HR, your guidelines and protocols that guide the response, the training materials you may need, and the budget, the funding requirements. So this week, or when we do ERP like this as a cluster, we are not going to deal with technical competencies. We are not going to deal with the technical details of IYCF in emergencies, of scaling up acute malnutrition treatment. We are going to plan just for the operational arrangements. But as you define a methodology for your ERP planning, you can task in your country a technical working group working on IYCF, or a technical working group working on the treatment of acute malnutrition, to them be prepared on the technical aspects of things. Okay? Okay. So we have a bit of time for a round of questions here before we look a little bit at what's happening in this Zwantipolis country. Is there any questions at this stage?
Alors, Cécile, before everything, there are some colleagues from French countries that were requesting if something in French will be facilitated for them because of language barrier, no?
I'm so sorry, colleagues. I'm so sorry. For now, all the tools are in English only. In the near future, the GNC will work for the translation of all the ERP tools in French and Spanish. But currently, we have everything in English, so everything will be facilitated in English. And I was very clear in all the communications made since end of May about this, that unfortunately those 2 rounds of workshop we've done now, last month and now, are in English. Sorry for that, colleagues. But we've tried to pull Spanish-speaking countries together and French-speaking countries together for at least during the group work. You can switch to French or Spanish, but really sorry, colleagues, we don't have tools and other language.
Cécile, just on that we only had colleagues from Niger in group 4. I don't know if that was a mistake. No one from Mali, Burkina, or Benin.
I will double check, Ben, because I think there was a bit of a hiccup with the way the audience was split. Group 4 should have had Benin, Burkina, Mali, and Niger.
Yeah, we only had 2 colleagues from Niger and myself.
Sorry
and
for
DRC.
And the one from Benin. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll fix that bug with the way colleagues are just distributed. Okay, I see a hand from John. John, you have a question?
Yeah, quick question. Thank you so much. Actually, 2 questions. The first one is related to the process that we've been going through here the past couple of weeks with the OCHA that I've been trying to lead the ERP process. And one of the issues we had with that was it looked like it was more of a resource-based process than maybe a needs-based. What I mean is starting out with what would be your overall envelope for what you develop, and then kind of you work backwards, fitting into that, which all of us found that to be kind of a challenge because it restricts you in terms of planning and what goes into that. So that's the first question. I wanted you to kind of maybe clarify or elaborate on that. What do you consider most? Is it needs-based or a resource-based kind of ERP? The other question or comment I had is related to the risk analysis. So would it be more ideal to have a risk analysis that brings in the different sectors than going it alone as one sector, one cluster, as in because we know most of the risks are cross-cutting. Yeah, they don't just impact one sector. So would it be more ideal to bring in the different sectors when you're doing a risk analysis? And maybe I know that maybe we'll be going into that in the upcoming sessions, but we can pack it if it will be elaborated or clarified later. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So for the first point, ideally, it's really strongly recommended, and it's in the international guidance. You would do everything. You would base your ERP plan on a solid risk analysis, and you would develop a plan based on the key immediate needs you predict will happen in that given scenario. So currently in your country, maybe there might be a reason why OCHA is going straight into just looking at available resources and planning backwards, but that might be because of a lack of time. That might be, I don't know, there might be reasons, but it's not really recommended. And if you want to maximize the chance of having a meaningful ERP plan, actionable plan, useful plan, it needs to be risk-informed. Risk-informed planning is the key way to go. Then you might be caught up into being brought back by reality, and you have only scarce financial resources, and you can do what you can do with what you have, but that's not a proper way of doing planning. And maybe I would ask you to maybe discuss this with your colleagues at OCHA, and maybe there are some other phases or other exercises you can use. So maybe with OCHA, you've been spending a lot of time on doing the HNO, the Humanitarian Needs Overview analysis. And you can pull some information from that for your ERP plan. Or you have, as we discussed, other organizations, UNICEF, WFP, WHO, NGO colleagues may have already done risk analysis. And you may just say, okay, we know in there we have two main risks to plan against. And you do your step-by-step planning carefully. And maybe you go through the end. Maybe you realize that ideally you need, I don't know, 10,000 USD for your preparedness actions. And you may not have this amount of resources, but at least you can then mobilize. You have a tangible thing to take and go to donors and advocate and mobilize by saying, you know, look at the tangible preparedness actions I want to undertake with my cluster to be able to be ready. So I'm sure that it's more meaningful to go from this very first step, risk analysis, and we'll come into your next point during the next session, where we'll see how, yes, indeed, it's worth triangulating your analysis that you did with your nutrition lens with the risk analysis of other sectors, because this is really the first step towards building more intersectoral collaboration and multi-sectoral programming. If you have a multi-sectoral look at risk analysis and monitoring, you'll see that it's very likely that the indicators we'll be using to monitor how risks evolve is very likely it's not going to be a nutrition indicator, because nutrition indicators are late indicators. So it might be that we're going to use, I don't know, an indicator from the disease surveillance system, or from food security on following the rainfall pattern, or levels of water in some rivers, or I don't know. You'll see that it comes very relevant, and most of the time in countries where there is a proper risk analysis and monitoring system in place, early warning systems in place are often multi-sectoral in nature. Okay.